with me. Prison is not a black man's natural habitat. Okay? Just like destitution and being single is not really a black woman's natural habitat. The dangers of a man being in prison, one, it takes him out of the community, takes him out of the mentorship of young black men, young boys' lives. Two, if you're in prison, you ain't paying taxes. Taxes are basically being used to take care of you, which is taking money out of the community. On top of that, if you're just hustling, drug dealing, scamming, all this other stuff, it does not provide any taxes to the black community at all, which makes us vulnerable, and any black community vulnerable to gentrification. And gentrification is where basically other races are able to come into our communities, or predominantly black communities, and basically take them over non-violently. The only thing they got to do is buy a house, fix it up, or build a house and make it better. And what it'll do is it'll raise the taxes for everybody else in that neighborhood. And the more people that move in, the more they improve the neighborhood, the more power they gain, and the more ability they have to actually raise the taxes, raise the standard of living, but at the same time, move you out. Because if you're not taking care of your house, your land, and all this other stuff, basically it makes that community vulnerable to other communities that actually seek value. And you can see it in places that used to be predominantly black, that are currently predominantly black. You'll see more and more other races move in there and potentially take over. But there seems to be some type of mentality that's coming from rap music and all this other stuff, gangster thought process. Now, you have a lot of guys who are just being gangsters because they're raised that way. Then you got people being gangsters because they see it as a way of getting women, which in some cases is true. And then you have gangsters that are just made into gangsters or just choose to be gangsters because for whatever reason they think scamming, being a thug, and all this other stuff is going to give them notoriety. And yes, it will. The problem is you can get notoriety in one aspect of life and then lose in every other aspect of life. Basically, anybody who's going to prison takes themselves out of the community to a degree. Even if you're still in the community, you're taking yourself out of the community, but you're also hurting the community because you're going to be reproducing who you want. And kids, a lot of times they don't have the wisdom to say, hey, dad went to prison, I shouldn't go to prison, even if their dad tells them. But then you got some dads that want you to tell them, hey, it ain't bad thing to go to prison. But in reality, it actually takes the voice away from the black community because one, once you go to prison, get like a felony, now you lose your right to vote. So that's one less person that can vote for any rights you want to have in the community. Now, I don't know how it affects on the local level, but it can definitely affect on the federal level when you're doing regular elections. But the idea, concept, and the push of people within the black community to actually go to prison, be a thug, be a scammer, you are hurting the community, period. All right? It's almost, you're almost in an anti-black, you're actually being anti-black without necessarily being anti-black, okay? Because the way the rules work, they're not conducive to the thing that black culture is being pushed on in the TV, in the music. That stuff is not conducive, right? It used to be that the life of a person drove the music. Now it's like the music is driving the life of people. People are choosing a lifestyle based on the music that's backwards. All right. And personal opinion, I think it's actually our music. I believe is being our music and our influence is being used against us to destroy us. All right. But what we need is to make our people who they originally meant to be. And that's like we were warriors, more than likely back in Africa, or farmers back in Africa, businesses back in Africa. There were even farmers, businessmen. There still are farmers, businessmen, warriors here in today's culture. That stuff is still here. All right? We still have black women and black men and women doing things like that, making things. Inventors, scientists, religious leaders that are actually moral, not people who are just trying to take advantage of position. All right, we got people who fought for human rights, which went all over the world. You know what I mean? It's influencing the world. But if we're sitting up here and we're having people to look at us in a different way, that's going to cover up our history. And it's also going to make people see us in a light that we were never meant to be seen in. We have already been through a lot of things in our culture. We've been through slavery. We've been through situations where people have built up like Black Wall Street and it's been destroyed. And Black Wall Street isn't the only place that's happened where a black community has built themselves up, was actually making money, doing better than some of our other races at times. And then somebody came in and destroyed the community. All right? That stuff actually happened. We have the power to become businessmen. But right now, people are using that power to become scammers and thugs and all this other stuff that does not benefit the community. Even drug dealers don't benefit the community. They may benefit the individual. And they may benefit other people in some realm. But the problem is it's a losing battle. You cannot fight as a drug dealer. You can fight as a drug dealer, but you can't fight society as a drug dealer. You're already losing. You're already considered a menace to society. You're already considered destroying society. And you're basically a target that hadn't actually been shot at yet in some cases. So you have to take yourself out of that stuff, all right? And if you're in it, you gotta find, if you're in it, I would say the smartest person who's a drug dealer, the smartest people who've ever been drug dealers or scammers or somehow in that business, they are always gonna be the people that's looking for a way out. They're gonna be looking for a way to actually make themselves legitimate, stay out of the system, and become somebody who's going to be a powerful force in nature. And you cannot do that if you get caught, all right? You cannot do it if you get offed, unalive. You cannot do it if you just don't care, all right? You just hurt the community more and more. And then, you can't just sit up here and call yourself pro-black if you're saying stuff like that. You know, people get claim to be not pro-black for doing a whole bunch of other things, but the worst thing you can do is put the community down or be a bad example in the community. But say it with me, I'm telling you, black men, the natural prison is not the natural habitat for a black man. Never was, never should have been. All right, just like I would say slavery is not the natural habitat, but in history, I think every culture has probably been a slave at one point in time. You know, that was just our time right there, you know what I'm saying? And there are other things that happened, such as apartheid, and then you had recent things where you had like the Jim Crow laws, you had sharecropping or something like that, which is basically another form of slavery. It just had a different name, and it was legalized, I guess, somehow. But there are things we have been put in jail for doing the right thing. we have been put in jail for doing things the right way. And that, to me, is more gangster than anything where somebody's willingly breaking the law and then making themselves a target. No, you're a real target. When you're a good black man is the real target. All right. If you have any type of influence in the world, if you have any type of money in the world, and you're for the black community, you are a target in most cases more than likely. And I think we need to go back to that level of thinking. You know what I'm saying? We need to go back to a level of thinking of building the community, being good, having good relations in the community, make sure we're being a part of the community. We need to make sure that we're speaking in the government. We need to make sure the black community is making positive, results in society as a whole, so that when we speak, people have a reason to listen. And not only do people have a reason to listen here, but also all over the world. Because to me, the idea, the thought process of thug, scammer, drug dealer, all that stuff, that is actually getting us more ignored than it actually is being listened to. It's cool if you see it and you kind of adopt the culture, but the lifestyle is very damaging to us. All right, if you go, it's nothing wrong with like adapting the style. In some cases, the attitude, you know what I'm saying, as long as your attitude is respectful. But even in that regard, you cannot be disrespectful to other people. You can't be disrespectful to your brothers, you know what I'm saying? You can't be disrespectful to other races. You got to be respectful. And respect has to be given, and it should be returned, all right? In the real world, you know what I'm saying, the man's world, basically respect is something you give, you know what I'm saying? But it's also earned as well. And so to get that respect, you got to do something out of respect for it. You know, you can't be taken away from a man who works and expect to be respected. You're taking for somebody who's actually doing all the work to get money, just to get money. And that's what strength. You have physical, you may have physical strength, you may have a weapon, but you're basically still making yourself a target. Not only that, you're making yourself, you're basically making more enemies than you're making friends. But again, prison is not the natural habitat for a man. And if any woman is telling you that she'd rather have a thug, she is not a good woman for you. Don't follow women, all right? They should be following you, and if they ain't willing to follow you, then you just need to let them be alone. That type of woman needs to be alone and stay alone, because she is not going to be nothing but trouble to the man and to our community. But that's what happens with Nice Guys with Tyler K. You guys take care and stay black. Unless you're a different color. Stay that color. And just respect it. Take care.